Greetings internet people, and thanks for tuning in. I am Alaska Crypto Guy and this video is part of my Be Your Own VPS series. In the previous video, we completed the remote configuration of our Hyper-V server from Server Manager and Hyper-V Manager which were installed on our management PC. This is the part where all your hard work will begin to pay off in a big way. Today, we will use the Hyper-V Manager to create and install a sample virtual machine, demonstrate the value of checkpoints, and back up the virtual machine for later use with the deployment of new virtual machines. Before you begin, please check this video's description and make sure you have completed all steps listed in the Before You Begin section. Hyper-V is valuable because it allows you to make mistakes and test software or configurations in a controlled environment. This will permit you to rapidly recover from errors much more quickly than you could if using regular computers. Hyper-V allows you to run different versions of Windows and Linux side by side and rapidly deploy additional copies of virtual machines with common base configurations. There are plenty of reasons to virtualize computers and I cannot possibly go into them all, so instead of just talking about them, let's make one of our own. Begin by logging into your management PC and open Hyper-V Manager. It may take a moment for your Hyper-V server to be detected, so do not panic if it doesn't appear immediately. When it appears in the list of Hyper-V servers on the left-click on it once and then choose New and Virtual Machine from the Actions menu on the right side to launch the new virtual machine wizard. Click Next to skip the Before You Begin page, and then type a name for the new virtual machine. I recommend that you use something which will describe the intended use of the virtual machine. After you have typed a name, click Next. Choose Generation 1 or Generation 2, and then press Next to continue. Keeping in mind that most commercial VPSs that people rent for cryptocurrency come with 1 GB or 2 GB of memory, I will give this Ubuntu virtual machine 2 GB of memory and then click Next. Choose your virtual network switch from the list to enable network connectivity on the host, and then click Next to continue. On the Connect Virtual Hard Disk page, the default settings are fine, so click Next to move on. The following page will permit you to configure the operating system installation. Although you can choose to install an operating system from a physical CD or DVD, you are probably going to want to install from an image file or ISO. Select those options and then browse for the Install ISOs folder on your hard drive where you store the Ubuntu installation media. Select the ISO from the folder, and click Open, then Next. Here you can review the settings for your new virtual machine, and then create the virtual machine by clicking Finish and wait for it to finish. Left-click on the machine one time and left-click on Settings from the menu on the lower right side of the Hyper-V Manager to enter its settings. From here, you can make changes to settings in existing virtual machines. I have been unable to get dynamic memory working properly with Ubuntu 16, so do not enable dynamic memory on this machine. Dynamic memory works well with Windows 7 Ultimate and Windows 10 Professional. Windows assigned the machine only one virtual processor by default, but since we want this machine to have more processing power, we will increase the number of virtual processors. In settings you can see and make changes to the virtual hard drive or virtually attached install images if you need to, and we will also enable guest services and standard checkpoints on this virtual machine, so select those options. Review the automatic start and stop action tabs to understand what they mean, but do not make any changes to those settings at this time. Then press OK to close out of, and apply the new settings. At this point, the virtual machine is created and configured. Now it is ready for you to install the operating system. Choose Start to start the machine, then click Connect to open a connection to the virtual machine which you can see and interact with. You will now see the window begin to boot from the Ubuntu Install ISO. Select Install Ubuntu and then install the operating system normally as you would on a regular computer. You may need to maximize this window to be able to see the whole screen on the virtual machine. Go through the install process and select the settings you want. Let Ubuntu partition the virtual hard drive the way that it wants to. Select a time zone and continue. Select keyboard and language settings and continue. Enter a username, computer name, and password. I prefer to let my VMs log in automatically since there is no physical terminal and I am going to secure my VPS using other means. Begin the installation by clicking Continue. Then wait for the installation to complete. I have accelerated the installation speed by a factor of 50 times in order to move things along. To finish installing Ubuntu, a restart is required, and that makes this a great place to create a checkpoint. Exit out of full screen mode, and check to make sure the installation media is ejected from the virtual DVD drive by looking for it in the media menu of the virtual machine connection. Then click the turn off button to power down the virtual machine. Checkpoints are best made when the virtual machine is not running. When you see in Hyper-V Manager that the machine state has changed to off, right-click on it and select checkpoint to create a new checkpoint. Then give the checkpoint a meaningful name so you can come back to that exact system state if it is needed. I will call this one cleanly installed to describe that it is a brand new installation with no customizations made. Congratulations! You now have a functioning virtual machine. Because the purpose of this video is to demonstrate how to create and use virtual machines, I am going to speed through the setup and customization of this machine for now. Don't worry, we will come back to this in a future video and I will go into detail on how to harden a VPS against attack from outside intruders. If you are following along with this video on your own equipment, go ahead and restart the machine and install a program or two, make some customizations, and shut down the virtual machine. That will be enough for us to continue learning how Hyper-V works. When you have completed the customization of the computer, create another checkpoint by right-clicking on it and select checkpoint. I will rename the checkpoint to Ubuntu template, hardened and secure to indicate that this is the computer after all common settings, hardening, and customization has been completed. This is a great time to explore how checkpoints work. We have now created 2 checkpoints for this virtual machine. The first checkpoint was taken just after we installed the operating system and shut it down. The second checkpoint was taken after the customization and hardening of the server had occurred. Let's suppose that you realize that you had applied the wrong customization to the computer and you want to start over. While it would be possible to simply delete this virtual machine and start from scratch, a faster way to accomplish the same thing would be to roll the system back to the exact state it was in at the time the first checkpoint was taken. This takes only a few seconds, and saves you the 20 or 30 minutes it would take to reinstall the operating system from the ISO. To demonstrate, right-click on the first checkpoint and select Apply. Hyper-V will ask to make sure you really want to apply the checkpoint. Click Apply and notice that it takes only seconds to revert to the previous checkpoint. Start the machine and let it load to illustrate how the computer has been completely restored to the state it was in after the initial installation was complete. If you would like to know more precisely what is going on with the virtual hard disks, open File Explorer and navigate to your virtual hard drives folder. There, you will see the main virtual hard drive file, Ubuntu template.vhdx. You will also see a couple of other files. Each of these is a differencing virtual hard drive which represent the checkpoints you have created. Observe how, in the Ubuntu window, you see that pristine desktop exactly as it was at the original time of installation. All of the customizations and software that were installed after the first checkpoint have been undone. You can now shut down the virtual machine. Clicking the shutdown button will send commands to initiate a graceful shutdown of the operating system. You may close the window once it has shut down. Looking back at the virtual hard drives, notice that the original VHD file is the largest. This represents the main hard drive as it was when the first checkpoint was taken. The second file exists as a slave to the first hard drive file. This file includes references to all data that was changed on the hard drive after the first checkpoint was created. These are the Ubuntu updates and customizations we installed earlier. The smallest file, the third VHD, represents only changes that have been made since we reapplied the original checkpoint. Because all we have done is to start the machine and shut it back down, the virtual hard disk file didn't change all that much, so its size remained small. To further illustrate this point, let's reapply the second checkpoint, the one we created after customizing the virtual machine. Switch back to the virtual hard drives. You'll notice that the second slave VHD file shrank back down to 4096 kilobytes, which is the smallest you will ever see a VHD. This is because the file represents the checkpoint exactly as it was when the checkpoint was created. While it is possible to keep checkpoints indefinitely, I am instead going to delete the first checkpoint and incorporate those changes into the base image. I do this because I don't want to have to apply those 45 minutes of customizations to every additional virtual machine I create that is based on this template. Right-click on the checkpoint and choose Delete Checkpoint to merge the changes from the checkpoint into the base VHD file. I have switched over to the File Explorer so you can watch as the server incorporates data from the checkpoint into the primary VHD file. See how the original VHD is increasing in size? With that complete, I will then also delete the second checkpoint to permanently commit those changes as well. Experience has taught me that it is easiest to import and quickly deploy virtual machines when the base image does not have any checkpoints attached to it. When both checkpoints are deleted, select the virtual machine. Then select Export from the menu on the right side of the Hyper-V Manager and browse to the folder named Hyper-V Backups in your data store folder. You can then watch as the virtual machine is exported into the backup folder. This will take a few minutes to complete, and when finished, we will create a new checkpoint before we stop for the day. If you followed along with everything we've done so far, you now have a complete backup of your virtual machine as well as a checkpoint for your existing virtual machine, so I would encourage you to play around with that computer and continue to get it set up just the way you want it. In the next video, I will show you how to take the base Ubuntu image and harden and secure it so that you can use it as your very own VPS without the monthly fee. Please feel free to ask any questions you have about this process, or if you encounter any problems with your deployment. Until next time, remember,
don't be afraid to push buttons. You never know what might happen if you do.